Money, power, politics. And while the shutdown drags on here at home, questions are swirling over the Trump administration's interventions overseas. The FT reporting Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is facing mounting pressure to justify Washington's multi-billion-dollar bailout of Argentina, including from some of the president's closest MAGA allies and Republicans in farm states, especially now that President Trump has floated the idea of bringing down meat prices by importing beef from Argentina, which cattle ranchers across the country say will not help. The president responded to the backlash by saying to the ranchers they do not understand, and his tariffs are the only reason they're doing well. The nightcap is still here. Explain to me, if the tariffs are working, if they're going so well, why does the president need to take action to lower beef prices, and why are we doling out farm aid?
I mean, that's just what's so insane about this whole policy. It's the most incoherent economic policy imaginable, with the only through line being what's in it for Donald and his friends, right? Like, with this specific bailout here, right, you have Trump and Bessent authorizing a $20 billion taxpayer bailout to Argentina. Now another 20 mil coming from bankers, and they want collateral because they know the debt is so bad, right? And we're talking now 40 bill total. Meanwhile, you have the soybean farmers who are struggling because China is no longer buying soy because of the retaliatory tariffs, right? And then now these ranchers here, he wants to also go buy beef from Argentina. So it's like you're over here helping Argentina out while only your goal is to help Milei and Bessent's buddies, those people with the hedge funds. You have Fidelity over there, you've got PIMCO, you've got these other investment firms that are going to make money from this. So it's, to me, another example of just this cronyism politics while his farmers are going to be struggling.
I love the fact that he says, first of all, that post is amazing because he's like wrapping himself around the axle of like this central economic principle, which is one man's price is another man's income, right? So it's like, okay, is it good to have high cattle prices, beef prices, or low? It's like, depends. Are you selling beef or are you buying beef, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, well, if you're buying beef, you don't want them high. But he's trying to have it both ways. He's like, well, I made the beef prices high for you guys with the tariffs. It's like, you're saying that out loud. You said it in the first part. The only reason beef prices are high is because of my tariffs. It's like, yeah, dude, that's the whole point.
What tariffs
when you go to the grocery store and you're paying more for beef, it is because of Donald Trump. Now he wants to turn around and say, well, I want to lower beef prices for the people who store it. And the cattle rancher's like, wait a second, we're on the other side of that.
And what the president is saying to these farm state senators is, well, I like the president of Argentina. How does that work with these ranchers, with these farmers, with these Republican lawmakers? Like, last I checked, that doesn't align with America First.
By the way, he says, I like the president of Argentina so much that if he doesn't get reelected, we're going to pull the aid back.
Correct. Which, by the way, how is that going to work?
Yeah, and none of that's been, like, delineated in any of the documentation around this deal. With both the meat, the cattle ranchers and the farmers, it's similar to what we were just talking about, where healthcare lands for the GOP's own voters. These constituencies supported Trump. And it's not just tariffs, it's also his immigration policy. Farms are struggling because they can't find workers. And they're struggling against tariffs, and so their income is cratering. And now the same thing is being visited upon Trump. And rather than recognize that his policies are completely bonkers, he says to his constituents, in this case today, the cattle ranchers, just be grateful. I got you tariffs. Shut up and drink it and live with it. And this stuff isn't going to go away. There are so many different sectors of the economy that have this slow motion car crash occurring because of tariffs and because of immigration policy, and it's only going to worsen.
But at the same time, corporate earnings that we're getting are looking strong. So there is a disconnect.
Except like if you look at most of what got Tesla to where they are now were people stocking up because they anticipated a crisis coming. You already saw, like, the retailers today, Mattel said, no Barbies are going to be sold at Christmas this year. You're going to see it, I think.
And remember, that's Mattel, the biggest toy maker out there. Think about what all of that means for individual small businesses around the country.
Everybody has to realize that the impact of tariffs is a slow motion thing. And I don't think you're going to really see the full impact until the first or second quarter of next year. Now, the thing that's actually been softening it is the business communities realize you can go to the White House and get a carve out.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about.
If you're in the auto industry, you can get a carve out. If you're in energy, you can get a carve out.
For months, we have been saying, where's the business community? Where's the business roundtable? Why aren't CEOs speaking out? And I learned something last week. Many of them aren't speaking out because they don't need to. They have direct access to this president in a way that they have not had access to any White House in decades and decades. And from their perspective, they're saying there's nothing, we don't need to say anything publicly. We're in there, we're getting what we need for our company, and then we're sliding out the side door. But what can that mean for us? We're talking about short term, long term. In the long term.
Well, I mean, it's part of the reason that mercantilism as a way of managing an economy can be so corrupt. In fact, this is what Adam Smith writes about in Wealth of Nations, which is a polemic against mercantilism, which is precisely the fact that, like, if you have the chief executive of the state basically, like, deciding what to tariff when, everyone can go cut their corrupt bargains, right? And you get these incredibly distortionary effects. And you're seeing this in what Tim is saying in terms of everyone is looking for their particular carve out. I don't think in the aggregate it's going to work. Although the other thing that we've seen, I got to sort of temper this all the time, the American economy is enormous. And
stronger than economies around the world.
Stronger than economies around the world. And, there has been, it has hit a whole bunch of headwinds. And right now those headwinds aren't being provided by some exogenous shock like COVID and its aftermath or a war on European soil that's crunching supply chains. It's the shock of Trump, who is doing things to try to screw it up. And yet it is soldiered on, So it's like, right.
Like we can't hire employees, we can't invest in capital and equipment because we don't know what he's going to do next.
And yet the other thing I would say about that that was sort of true on Biden is true now, which is that it's enormous. It's sort of overperformed some of the fundamentals. It's managed to keep going amidst a bunch of shocks, and also majorities of people hate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Majorities of people hate what?
The economy. They're like, it sucks.
Yes.
And that was true in 2022 and 23 and 24, which helped get Donald Trump elected. It's definitely true now. His lowest ratings right now, it's really interesting. His lowest polling in the issue polling is on the economy and specifically on tariffs. These are not popular.
Okay, the other thing is, though, one of the things that works for the business community is no regulations or less regulations. The fact that we're living in a moment where we're not faced with COVID, we're not faced with a crisis, people don't think about regulations because what smart regulation does is provide a cushion and protects us. But if suddenly industry after industry is getting unregulated, when the you-know-what hits the you-know-what, it will be extraordinarily painful.
Regulation is supposed to be anticipatory. You're supposed to predict what potential issues could happen, the risk. It's all about risk mitigation. And what you have here, especially in AI, right? AI is propping up the entire market. I think there's 1,300 companies. CB Insights said 1,300 companies over $100 million. Around 500 are unicorn status. These are low revenue to no revenue companies, right? There's a bubble. Not all of them are going to be successful. Meanwhile, you have this, this slow walk towards superintelligence that people are trying to push with no regulation. You would think the government would want to be involved in kind of the crafting of that. Okay. And then you have there's a buy now pay later bubble that's kind of simmering on the side over here. There's the car payments. People are running late. There's all these other indicators below this ridiculous self-inflicted tariff wound that Trump has done.
And I know we have to go to break, but just today, 100 public figures signed a letter that they want to ban on superintelligence. But is that really going to do anything? I mean, 2 years ago, Elon Musk signed a very similar letter that did nothing. Of course, he did not sign it today, but these letters are worth.
Well, it is notable that Steve Bannon and Glenn Beck signed that letter. But also, I'm kind of wondering if we have any British viewers watching this, that a lot of the things we've been talking about so far sound like a bit of a speed run of Brexit, where in exchange for this deregulation, we get a lower standard of living and everything else costs more and there's way more uncertainty. Yeah.
It's pretty wild how much the outcome of Brexit was just everything got worse,
right?
And it has redounded to the political benefit of the faction in British politics that pushed Brexit.
Yeah, the last real quick thing I would look for people to watch internally: Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, Stephen Miller, and Bessent. How are these three going to navigate the complaints coming from the private sector? And at Wired, we broke the story about the paid dinners at Mar-a-Lago that were happening, where $1 million a head for a table, $5 million for your CEO, whoever one-on-one. I think a lot of this might end up getting hashed out at those new ballroom or rose garden patio
That's
functions.
not a might, that's a for sure.